Welcome to the SIWIKE Podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE Podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. We're back here with our good buddy, Revant, and we thought we'd talk today a little bit about networking. So in one of our previous episodes, he talked about how he was having some challenges job searching, and he just applied online and gave some thoughts on terms of connecting with people on LinkedIn and elsewhere. So we thought we'd like to go into some of his past and some of his more recent networking experience and give him some updates in terms of like how he's been progressing. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about some of the experience you had previously in networking, and then what you've decided to do recently when it comes to networking?
Yes, I feel like since the last time we've had a call, there's been quite a transition in me, wherein initially when I joined UTSC, there was a booth for one of the organizations wherein it was just like a $20 registration fee, and like you could get access to their clubs and networking events. And I thought it was very cool. Like $20 doesn't matter too much, right? It's not going to harm you. So I just paid that up, and it was a fancy thing for me. Like in my first year, like I wasn't looking for any co-op opportunities. It's just the year you study. And I actually went to networking events, like a couple of networking events, just like to get a feel of wearing formal clothes and to be involved like in the professional group.
Right.
But I actually just went there to just have fun with my friends and just picked up a few brochures from a couple of people and just put in my brochures bank and didn't even go over that. Just asked a few questions here and there. Got a few companies' name, just learned a few things. And I think since then, at one of the events, I saw that they actually allowed the members of the organization to go up the CN Tower. So I was like, oh my God, this is so much value for money. Like, imagine who would actually get to go up on the CN Tower for just $20, right? So I went to the CN Tower, and I just went there for the view, actually, and just networked with a couple of people, took a few brochures as usual, and then came down. And I feel there's been a major transition since the last time we spoke, because actually you taught me how, since I've not received any interviews or any rejections from companies, I was feeling very weird. And I was like, okay, fine, there's one of the same networking events from the organization, so let's attend it, because it's just virtual, so there's no harm in doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the networking session, and I think it turned out to be really well, actually, with all the tips you've given me.
Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit more about that experience. So you're online, it's a virtual setting. Is it through Zoom or one of those other platforms, or like how did like kind of the setup, and if folks are doing some of these online networking things, what are some of the things that they might look forward to, or some of the tips that you could provide as they kind of navigate the online networking world?
So actually, it was not Zoom which they used. There was a separate platform.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I can recall the name, but it was quite helpful. Like I think there were like at least 20 companies out there with different booths, and each company had approximately 4 to 5 representatives who were there to attend, the students, of course. And one of the things like which I read in like the email was that you got to turn up in formal clothes and just be ready to network well. Like those were some tips given.
Sure.
So initially when so before the event, I uploaded my resume so that the employers could actually see, which potential candidates they're looking for. And I got called up on my email by one of the big 4 accounting firms for a coffee chat, and they told me to enter the booth, and they really liked my resume. So I was like, the more the reason to go and network now. And when I actually went in there, it was probably in the first 1 minute of the discussion, and I was super excited to network because it was officially my first time networking properly. And what happened was when I went in the booth for for the same company who had called me up. I think the employer wasn't the speaker wasn't able to navigate well and was not accustomed to the setting. And while she was yet figuring it out, and she told me to come back to revisit on her booth because she's not able to figure this out, so she's going to end the chat. So without any objection, I was like, yeah, sure, just to be polite, I was like, okay, cool, I don't mind. And when she ended the chat and when I actually went back in the queue, there were approximately 40 people in the queue. And my wait time was actually more than 2.5 hours. And the networking event was only for like 2 hours, right?
Okay.
So there's no way I was gonna get like another chance to speak to them. Which after all, like I connected with them on LinkedIn and took the conversation away from there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just good to know that. And one more incident I would like to share is that initially they mentioned that how you should be formally dressed and like just gave a few tips. It was like I think 4 a.m. for me out here,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like wearing a shirt with a tie. And for the first 5 companies I went to, they were just not. They were actually not. We were just actually chatting, or maybe it was a voice call.
Mm-hmm.
So between one of the sessions, while I was in the waiting room for an interview, I was like, I'm feeling very uncomfortable and super hot. So I went and changed back into my sleeveless t-shirt. And the next interview I go for, she's like, can we have a video call right now? Because it's simpler. So I was like, oh, okay, just give me a minute. So I quickly had to rush back, wear my shirt, and then wear my tie, and then sit for the interview. So I think, yeah, it was actually a good way for me to get to know more individuals. I also got to network with some individuals in some private equity funds, which are really fascinating for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some good insights as to one of the employees told me to do one of these courses from some institute, which actually catalyzes your chances into employment at their company. And this is what the recruiters look for. And one of the other recruiters also told me that they would like some private equity terms in your resume so that like they can see that you're more engaged into the company and stuff. So I think overall I networked with around 10 people, and I feel the platform actually supported it because whatever chat we were having and whatever insights were there, it had recorded everything. So even
Oh,
right
wow.
now, I can go back on the platform and access those things. And there was a separate column for the notes I have. Like I could actually rate the speaker and actually just note down the things which are not shown to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, it was an amazing platform, an amazing event. It's just the first interview, which I was a little disappointed about.
Well, it happens sometimes because everyone's kind of getting used to these things, and yeah, sometimes they hit reject instead of accept or whatever, or they and these things happen. But I think it's great that you were able to follow up afterwards and continue the connection. I want to ask a little bit about like how did your approach to the conversations change? So like how did you start them, or like were there certain questions that you felt that worked better, or different ways of engaging with folks that you felt like, yeah, these were really good? Because out of a sampling of 10, I don't know if all 10 of them were amazing conversations. There are probably a couple that were better than others. Did you notice any patterns in terms of how you connected with folks, and especially the ones or the questions or the things that you'll make sure that you do again for next time you network?
Yeah, I feel one of the major advantages I had was that I uploaded my resume well before
Mm-hmm.
the event. So the employers knew which students they were actually planning on, trying to talk to in the networking session. So even they had probably a list of students which they wanted to interview. And in fact, one of the good insights I got was that there's a company which is like kind of outside Toronto, a little outside Toronto in a small town. And one of the recruiters from there, like I just went to explore more options because it's a manufacturing firm. So I really didn't have, that much of a scope because I was looking for an internship in the field of finance. But I was like, there's no harm in going and checking out if there are some finance positions available. And in fact, when I went in the interview, when I went to network with her, she actually started interviewing me. Like she started asking me, like she asked me around 4 questions about my skills and my academics and all those things, and I was just shocked. Like networking session is for me to ask you questions about how to engage more in your industry, how to like how to increase your chances for employment, and what are the things you employers look for students in your potential candidates, and whether whether a co-op helps in catalyzing your interview process. But instead, it was the other way, when she was interviewing me, and after
Mhm.
like around 4 or 5 questions, she told me that I'd really like you. I'd really prefer offering you a co-op opportunity for this summer. Are you willing to join one? And are
Mhm.
you in the co-op department? So obviously, this is something exciting. I didn't accept the offer on the spot, but it was since I was not in the co-op department, and when I mentioned it to her, she was more like, uh, there are higher chances that we employ co-op students, since we get a tax benefit of around
Mhm.
3,000 CAD per student per year, or some per semester. But we prefer them. If not, then I'd really like you to take up this opportunity and think about it. And in in fact, we actually she mentioned this one crucial thing, that they actually don't employ students after graduating. The employability, the chances of them employing their co-op students into like the entry level positions is almost 80%.
Okay.
So like, I mean, the odds of you securing the co-op and securing a job after the co-op is very high. Like, there's
Mhm.
more certainty out there.
Mhm.
So it's difficult to get through the co-op, but once you're in it, like you're sorted. If you prefer, if you're liking the working environment and stuff.
That's amazing. So I think a couple of things that I took away from that, and that I like to share with folks, is that if you actually think of networking, so yes, it is an opportunity for you to ask questions to employers, but networking is also an informal interview, right? So if you think about why employers go to events, they are there to scout out students and to find people who they would likely want to invite for a more formal and more intense, I guess, interview. So you want to put in your best foot forward. So yeah, like make sure you're wearing the formal clothes that they suggest. And even though if it's all audio, don't quickly take it off just for a little bit of comfort. Bear with it for I guess the hour or two, or where you have to go for it, so you're not scrambling. The other thing that came to mind, an interesting thing might be if you can convince this person to say why you are worth $3,000 more than another person, all right? Because if you think about it over the course of a co-op term, over the course of 4 months, like $3,000 over 4 months is not that much money, right? So if you can say that, you know what, because of my skills doing this, and this, like I'm actually worth more than a co-op because of blah, 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 whatever you've done, right? So that could be an interesting area. And then, yeah, I think your point about doing a co-op and then getting hired in full time, that's the same experience that I had, where like I ran the campus recruiting program, and the full-time hiring process was quite intense, right? There were quite a number of stages. The co-op one, we really only had one interview, right? But the co-op ends up being a 4-month interview, right? Is essentially what it is, and they get to see you, and it's typically like, yeah, probably like an 80% kind of return offer rate. So it's pretty similar. So it's actually easier to get into a co-op and then get hired full time than it is to go through the full time process. So that's just a consideration for folks. So I think that's amazing. A couple of thoughts that I wanted to share with you is to remember and to write down and record all of the people that you connected with, and if you can keep their contact information, put a calendar invite that recurs every 4 or maybe 5 months, and then put all those people's names in there, and then have it to never end, right? So 5 months from now, so right now we're recording in March, it'll pop up in August and say like reconnect with whoever, all these people that are there, and then make a point to send a LinkedIn request and or a message or email or whatever it is, however you connected with them, and then it'll pop up again in, so August is 8, so it'll pop up again in January, and then how are you doing, right? Give them an update of what you've been up to, all the cool projects you've worked on, all the new skills that you've developed, and ask them about them. And then again, it'll pop up in June and whatever. And by the time you graduate, you'll have all these awesome connections and relationships for the ones that respond, because not all of them will respond. But then you'll have developed a closer relationship with those, and that's all the build part of build meaningful connections. So that's the approach to networking. Yeah, and when you do that, I think you'll find more of the opportunities come to you, because people are more, well, first of all, they remember who you are, and they'll keep you top of mind for any future opportunities. So yeah, what are some other kind of tidbits, tips, or tricks that you might give to someone as they're kind of trying to take networking a little bit more seriously and trying to get better? What are some of the things that you felt worked well for you?
I think probably one of the most, what do you say? Probably one of the most influencing factors for me was the motivation to actually go and network. Like, I think once you have that sorted, then there's nothing stopping you from that. Initially, I didn't have much interest in going to network, and I wasn't seeking for a co-op. I wasn't seeking for a job, right? So I had no motivation. But now, when I'm actually like looking probably like a year down the line, I think I need to start building on some network, some relationships outside my university too, right? So I feel like just the motivation to actually go and network, not only network is probably not the right term. Network is more like a formal thing wherein you actually just you're talking to the people to seek a job, but actually just to build a bond with whoever you want out there, right? Might not be for a job. I mean, what if the employer and you can have a similar mindset, and you can just relate with them on some different topics? So, I mean, you actually got a friend out of a networking session, right? So I feel it's just that you got to be more open-minded towards towards going and meeting more people out there.
That's a good point. So that's why I call my approach to networking BMC, build meaningful connections, right? And that point about being a friend that you haven't yet met or haven't built a relationship with, I think it's great. And the other thing is, this person could also be a mentor, right? It could be someone you can learn from and learn their insights, their experience, their expertise, get some tips and tricks in that. And it's also an investment in your future, right? Because the world is small, even though there's 6 billion people of us, right? When you get into a particular industry or particular area, you'll find that you start bumping into the same people all over, right? So if you're in accounting, I mean, the big four, people tend to know each other, that sort of thing. And when you get around in like finance, and I think I had a friend where in certain parts of finance, especially, like everyone kind of knows everybody, right? So, and if you're not in that inner circle, then you're not necessarily open to as many opportunities. And to be in those circles when you're in second, third, fourth year versus in your graduation stage or master's or whatever program, then that adds an advantage, because you've had more time to build a relationship, right? And sometimes those friendships, it's something that takes time, right? It's not something that, oh, we met once and now we're best friends. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we connected and month over month, year over year, even decade over decade, because hopefully all of you are going to have a very long and fruitful career. And by doing that, then people will be able to help you, and you'll also hopefully be able to help them in the future too, right? So yeah, I think that motivation piece and that reason for and even wanting to network in the first place is probably the biggest hurdle. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some more updates in terms of I guess progress on the job search, or more interesting network events or things that you've gone to. And are there any other kind of last tips or insights that you'd want to share with the audience?
I think it'd just be that be ready for a video call no matter what the situation is. Never change while you're networking online.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But yeah, sometimes when it's hot or uncomfortable or whatever, not everyone likes to be fully dressed. But sometimes there's a reason, and the event will end soon enough, right? But I think that's good. So thanks, Revant, for sharing your insights, and hopefully we'll have you back for another topic.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.